we spent about $180,000 on an event. We did not close any business. Is that the ROI we are looking at even in 2026?
Biggest mistake is not coming in knowing what you want out of the show. Some of them don't even know how to properly network without actually selling anything. When you pick the right people, you build longer relationship that might not turn into an ROI within a month or two. Most follow-ups happen within the first 30 days. After 30 days, leads are dead. The digital world always gets noisier. Surprisingly, the in-person network becomes the most valuable thing. I always show up to a newcomers meetup, by the way. That's the number one thing for any association, newcomers meetup. I'm always there because every newcomer don't know who to talk to. Being an expert in that sense, people are going to lean on you and they're going to remember you throughout the whole event. So.
All right, Jonathan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Rahul. It's been a long time coming.
Yes, I don't know how long we've been talking about doing this, but I'm so glad you're actually finally making it happen. Tell us the story of your Labubu. Do you have a name?
I don't actually have a name. I got this Labubu at a conference, actually, since we're going to be talking a lot more about events, and this is sort of like my go-to realm, especially with swag. So basically, a company brought in Labubus. I don't know if it's real or fake. We don't have to worry about that, but it looks real. I just got it from a conference. Gave a few to my daughters as well. So.
Wow. I remember, when the whole thing exploded, I was actually in SF. And I remember on the streets, they were selling the fake ones, of course. And for the real ones, there was a long queue. I remember I used to take the train, and there were stores which had a long queue starting at 9 a.m., believe it or not. And people would get the chance to buy one at 11 a.m. I'm like, so much free time. But it was all the craze. Is it still the same there yet? Or do you think that has faded now?
I don't know, actually. I mean, I know in the space there's still a lot of other versions of it. I feel like it's sort of dying because there's a lot more other versions of Labubu's, not even Labubu as a brand that's popping up. So I don't know, actually. I haven't been following that whole trend.
Yeah, I don't see that in UAE anymore. I used to when I used to travel, and I traveled I don't know, a couple of continents back then. But I saw this in Europe. I saw that a little bit in Asia. This was big in the whole Silicon Valley back then. And I do remember one CEO talking about it. I think it was an engineering product where they actually bought 500 of them, and they were planning to send it to all their prospects. That was their whole strategy back then.
Yeah, it's definitely a smart strategy, right? You play with the trends, and Labubu was a thing, and having it's I remember this. Up to today, I still remember the company that gave it, right? So it's the name kind of lasts.
So we're gonna be talking a lot about event today. Thank you so much for giving me a space. In fact, I want to thank you for giving me the space to talk about it, because I come from a place where I have attended, I think, about 17 events in about 4 years, about 4 events a year, and I have been in those companies sometimes where I was the one to suggest let's go for the event, because some of the companies I used to work with were not very well known, and there was no way for us to acquire those customers in the first place. So we thought, what? Why don't we go to a place where we go to some events where we might find some customers? And I think it was a hit and miss, but I would say mostly miss. And I'd love to learn a little bit about your strategy, your experiences. But I want to share one of mine, where I worked with a company where we spent about $180,000 on an event. And that included about $100,000 on the event booth itself, about, $30,000, $40,000 to set up the booth, $100,000 just to purchase the space, the venue, the diamond sponsorship or whatever, and $40,000 about $40,000 on the, all the swags, the setting up the booth, the time spent dealing with the marketing. This logo has to be just right, and it has to be on the right, left. You know the drill, right? And then flying everybody, the CEO, founders, CFO, head of marketing, me, my head of sales, SDRs, all of us staying for about 10, 15 days. It costed us $180,000. And if I am being super honest, we got 50 leads, out of which maximum 10 were qualified, and we did not close any business. That's as simple as it is. Is that the ROI you're looking at even 2026, or do you think I had a bad experience and we had a bad strategy?
I feel like there's definitely, well, I mean, we can kind of break this down to like multiple segments, especially around trade shows, because I feel like the biggest consensus that people, in my opinion, is the biggest mistake is not coming in knowing what you want out of the show. Because there's a framework that I use basically when I think about like an event, right? The biggest thing, it's like, what do you want to get out of the event? So it's called the three A's, right? I'm not sure if you heard of it before, but like, it's number one is awareness, right? It's your purpose, going to events to showcase your brand awareness, get your name out there because no one has heard about you, right? Purely on a marketing level. And then number two would be acceleration. So this is where you go into trade shows with a specific mindset of, I'm here to meet the people that I'm supposed to be meeting, people that's in the pipeline, people that I've already had conversations over the phone. I cold call, email. I want to meet them in person, right? And number three is the alliance. And I think a lot of people don't really talk much about this side of the world, which is purely thinking about, can I build a better network? Can I build better partnership? Can I build future buyer relationship? Right. And I think the trap, actually, this, I guess there's a fourth A. The trap that a lot of people face is the acquisition piece, right? So coming in with the trade shows without without that whole strategy, and you already think about, I'm gonna spend $180,000, I'm gonna get 100 leads, and just coming in with that mindset, it's bound to fail, right? Because like in realities, people go to trade shows not necessarily just to shop around, right? I mean, there's got to be like a few percentage that obviously does that, and they will shop around. But at the end of the day, it's like, what do you really want to gain out of those events, right? So 100K, 80K, honestly, I mean, that's a lot of money. I think we spent quite a bit in like my current company as well, close to like 100K on some events that, if I was to look back, it's like we should not be spending 100K for that kind of event, only to get X number of leads or X numbers of conversation, right? So measuring on leads alone, I think it's really tough. And I think going back, it's like, what's your purpose? Understanding those like three A's that I mentioned, and actually coming in with that specific purpose gives you a different reason of like, why should I spend a specific dollar? I guess you can kind of put it together similar to like marketing ads, right? Why should you put on Google Ads versus putting it on Meta as an example? It's like, you want to have the results, but like, you're okay with spending so much money if you know that there's actually proper results out of one of those channels, right? So
I want to ask a question, and this could be something which is probably on everybody's mind, but nobody says it out loud. It is so lucrative, to think about events. The team is excited. Oh, we get to travel, we get some time off. People kind of party at the end, but there's also work which has to continue, especially if you're in sales. And it is everybody's precious hours we are going to put in. And from the marketing point of view, I think all of them think about an ROI. Hey, we're going to spend this. And marketing, usually they have their own budget. They're like, hey, we're going to spend this much on events. And there's a large chunk which goes into the events. What is so exciting about events, which makes people, forget the basic principle you just laid out?
yeah, it's funny because, I mean, if I was to look at it as a rep point of view, every reps want to go because for them they think it's a vacation. Like,
Yeah.
I've been to like a lot of places. I've been to Orlando. We stayed in resorts, which is, it sounds nice, right? It sounds on a simple ways like, hey, you get to go to an event, you get to fly out, rack up some points, basically, get everything all paid for by the company to spend a time at a resort, on an overall like conversation that like that seems very attractive, right? But in reality, it's actually very tiring, right? It's actually very tiring, especially when you're coming there with a specific purpose. And I think a lot of people don't really think about who they're bringing and the purpose of the people that they're bringing over as well, right? Because like, I've seen people bring in like 15 sales rep, but in reality, when you go to trade shows and stuff, no one wants to talk to a sales rep, right? Honestly speaking, like, I try to even change my title when I go to to trade shows and not even have any hint of sales basically on my badge for that specific reason. So I think the biggest thing is really trying to really understand, when you're going there, who are you bringing and for what purpose are you bringing that specific people? Because you don't need a 15 person, or for 15 people basically to kind of attend a show, when you can actually have three solid, strong candidates, strong people that, number one, know how to network with people, know how to just keep conversations going, and know how to build relationship. Because I feel like, especially in our age, day and age, basically, with a lot of the younger, more quote unquote energetic sales rep that's been popping up, some of them don't even know how to properly network without actually selling anything, right? Because they come in with a purpose like, oh, that's a lead, so everything is like, what do you call that? Like commission breath. Like everything is just like, you have that commission breath of like, oh, that's target, 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 target. But when you pick the right people, you build longer relationship that might not turn into an ROI within a month or two, but they might be an ROI in the long term, or there might be what we call exponential ROI, meaning that they'll provide like a contact information for someone that they know, because they know you're selling this. A friend of mine basically also looked for a software. Hey, you should reach out to them. And then I'll triage you the conversation. Right. So I think that's like the biggest thing, is like really choosing the right people makes a huge difference, I would say.
I know what you're saying, but I'm not sure, anybody has ever thought about it, because if I'm being transparent, I have sent so many of my reps, and it was simply because somebody was a good performer, or we kind of promised somebody that, hey, there was a spiff going on. Hey, if you hit your quota, or if you hit certain quota in this month or this quarter, we're going to send you to it. And sometimes it was because I sent 5 reps and 5 reps are feeling bad. So I don't want them to feel like they're neglecting. And my boss would say, what, just send everybody. And I think I've been to those events where we were definitely overstaffed. I remember we went to an event in Europe where we had about, similar to 12 to 15 people, and it wasn't required. And believe it or not, but the company took really, really good care of us, where they said, your job is only to stay here for 8 hours from the time you start. And then we have a roster. So it was kind of nice, but yeah, like you said, we get to travel. And so people kind of think of that way. Now, so you were saying that all the companies were spending millions, and it's a $1 billion industry. There's Saster, I'm just thinking of the major brand names, but there's Javits Center in New York, which probably has like events going back to back. One event gets over, other one starts. Same goes for Dreamforce, where Dreamforce is hosted. So all these companies are hosting. I'm sure there is a market for it. So some companies would have the strategy, because that's the reason they're doing it. It makes sense for a company like Cisco and all these bigger companies to do it, because they have, of course, all the money to throw around. Plus, they have a heavy budget. What about the smaller startups? Because I'm really concerned about them. Yours seemed like a slightly larger setup. I'm thinking about the founders who have this whole thing. If I go to the event, I'm going to find leads, and we see some actually are successful. Can you tell us, like, the companies who are successful in, let's say, running these events, are they all following what you're saying, or are they coming with a certain agenda? Is that why they're successful? Does aggression work better? What really works?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you kind of mentioned, because I think the global event industry is valued at, I think based on my last research, was like $2.3 trillion, if I'm not mistaken, in 2026.
And
so it's growing like exponentially, because especially in the age of AI, right? People want that human interaction, which is, it's funny how, back in the days, we don't want human interaction. We want to move into the digital world. Now it's like we're kind of going back into like the old school sales, where a handshake matters, like speaking with someone matters in person, and taking them out for dinner actually matters as well. And like you're starting to see communities, and I guess that's the reason as well why I created the community. But is that specific reason as well that people are craving more of that. But I think some of the successful people that I've seen at events is, I guess there's like 2 parts to this, right? Number one, if you have a name and you're a big brand, you have to show up. It's not an option, I would say, because if you've shown up once and your name is starting to still like picking up every single time, and like people are starting to know you, being present is not for leads. Being present is for brand. So let me repeat that. So when you have some of this booth, you pay a lot of money, especially with like larger companies, like you were thinking about like the Salesforce of the world, the Oracles of the world. They show up to some of these events. In my opinion, it's not necessarily just purely for, I want to gain new business, but it's more around, if I don't show up, what do you think the people or the industry is going to talk about it? Right. And this is a case that we actually have seen basically in my industry, where there's a company. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to name the company, but there's a company that has made big names basically at trade shows. They always have like really nice booth, pretty book booth, and then this one year they just didn't show up, right? So without saying names, once again, everyone talks about it, saying that they go out of business. I haven't heard about them for a while. Like they were making names for like 2 years, and then on the third year they just disappear, right? So and when I'm saying disappear, it's like almost like completely disappear. They don't even have sales rep popping up, which I think there's definitely a way that you can kind of play around not having a booth and not spending the couple $1,000, but still having a presence of a brand or some sort of brand. I think that's a whole strategy around that. But to me, like that's one aspect of it, right? Like when you have a bigger company, you have money, so you spend it basically just to maintain your brand and also to nurture your clients. Because if you have a lot of clients that shows up to the industry, to the industry events, then you kind of want to make sure that you have a booth to kind of service and like nurture and have that conversation. Now, for someone, I guess, for like early stage startup or companies that doesn't have that many budget, in my opinion, a booth doesn't matter, right? A booth to me is just more, like I say, it's more branding. I don't think I have like the last 3 years we've had like events and trade show booths. I'm not gonna say it's successful. Like the biggest success is not at the booth. The biggest success is outside the booth hours, right? So whether you're meeting them at a bar, going to private events, joining some people private events. I like to kind of sneak into some events. And hopefully this this recording doesn't get out to like the people that actually invited me to some of those events. But I think there's definitely different ways that you can utilize with like one with $0, right? So being able to kind of play in with your partners, play in with some of your connections. But number two, if you do have some sort of budget, then throw something very simple, right? You don't have to be part of the event. Just I think this is like another consensus that I know a lot of people don't talk about. It's like if there's an event that happens, like let's say a convention center somewhere in like Dallas as an example, you don't have to be at the convention. You don't have to join the convention. But if you know that they're all staying in like the Marriott across the street, or they're staying at a hotel across, somewhere near the convention, host an event, right? Host an event, post it up on LinkedIn. Like have your partners kind of share, basically, hey, this is a private event. I want to invite 3 or 4 more people. That's the opportunity, basically. So you know what I mean? You can be creative. Like there's so many different ways to be creative. And I think I'll use one example. There's a company that I really love. Their marketing is a genius. They do attend the event, but they don't have a booth. They don't do any private events. All they did was basically they go to every washroom in the convention center and just put a sticker basically on every toilet. And it's simple with a QR code. Like basically everyone that goes to the 5,000 attendees going to the washroom, they're looking at it. It's like, what is this company, right? Because it's like everywhere. The branding is everywhere, and like, how much does that cost? Like, you can go to AliExpress and probably or Alibaba basically and get like a sticker or print out your sticker. It's like probably cost you less than like $500, right, to print out that many sticker. And the other way is like they which is I don't agree with, but they start slipping like a paper, like a flyer, basically on every single like hotel door when you're at a resort. Just put it on every single hotel room, and branding, right? Going back and just like being able to kind of showcase at least that side of the world.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing is, and I agree to it because I learned from some of the like most expensive mistakes working for these companies. That, like you said, you can always get these leads. Even if your idea is, let's say, branding or leads, you can still get it for less, like you said, by hosting an event, like you said, by being creative, like you said. Now, I do have a question which is probably popping up in everybody's head. And think about, now there are so many products which have come up in the last few years, like a lot more AI startups. It's just impossible to keep up, right? I'm sure everybody's doing their AEO and, all the things. And you also mentioned, we all are craving that human connection. So we want to get rid of Claude Code for about a weekend and, travel and, look at some of the events. So that's definitely a relief. Now, how would a smaller startup, let's assume they have some money, they have about $10,000 to $20,000, and I'm pretty sure they can host like a fancy dinner in that price, Now, the bigger question is, let's say now there are 10 companies who thought of, okay, we're all going to do this. One is, of course, about execution. How do they execute it so well? It does not have to be dinner. What else can they do in, let's say, $10,000 or $20,000, where they can make those connections, where they can have the people whom they want to really invite? Because these nights are, these dinners are usually nights only. It's not that Jonathan, who is, let's say, managing an SDR team is going to join an event which is meant for engineering team, right? So
Yeah.
how do we excite the right audience? Because there's a lot more which has to go in. Of course, you can email, but I don't know. I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, and going back to that original point around you don't need the conference permission to really do something near the conference. I think the idea of being involved at the conference benefit you a few things. Number one, I would say, is the attendee list. That to me is one of the biggest thing why I usually would pay to be a sponsor at an event, is because you do get the attendee list ahead of time. And once again, this varies obviously depending on like different conferences. Some conference that's not well run, you probably don't get the attendee list until like a week before the event, which I hate that. But like the well run events, you'll get event list maybe about a month or even 2 months before the event to kind of start outreach and so forth, right? So with about $10,000, I think you can actually do a lot of things with $10,000. You can book private rooms, dinners, suites, a bar, like a whole buyout of like the hotel bar as an example. Attendees are already in town, right? And you're sort of like utilizing that someone else's budget, like travel budget, because they're going to be present. Why don't I pull them in as well on that like side conversation outside the conference? So I think the one strategy you can kind of play on is, like I mentioned earlier, around the partnerships, right? Knowing your partners, knowing your peers, knowing your connections. Can you utilize some of those some of those folks and be able to kind of partner up with them, right? You can run, as an example, we do a lot of like integration partners. You can run a shared or collaborative event with a partner, saying that this is going to be this company and this company combined to do a private event, and then you
I've seen that a lot, actually. Yeah.
100%. And like, why not, right? Like you're sort of like, especially for early stage startup, you want to write the brand, right? You know what I mean? You want to, if you have a great partnership with a good brand, right along with that, right? Like just be able to kind of work together. It showcases both product at the same time, and you're also getting into their ecosystem of people, right? So that's definitely one way, right? The other way is I usually like the whole experiment. So it's more of like, when you go to a trade show or you go to an event, like the first thing you think about, it's like, okay, I'm gonna take an Uber from the airport, go straight to the hotel, and then I'm gonna just play around the hotel. It's kind of boring for 3 days, right? It's a very, very boring event in a way if you're just an attendee. So why not make it fun? Why not make something that's just very different, that's not at the hotel, right? So, you can do different excursion. Like I saw a company basically did an off-road ATV, like early in the morning, the day of the event, where it's like, that's like an experience that you never would have done. I would never have signed up myself, but then why not, right? I'm already here. I'm in Texas. Why not just like go off-roading first thing in the morning and then join the conference afterwards? So that's one. We did actually a very unique one, I think. So we have a conference that happens in Chattanooga. I'm not sure. Have you been to Chattanooga, or have you heard of Chattanooga before?
I've heard it, but never been there, of course. I've never been to Canada.
Okay. So it's actually in the States. So it's actually in Tennessee. It's a small town, very, very small town. I mean, I think the airport has like five gates or 6 gates. Like, it's a very, very small town. But a lot of the major conferences for transportations happen in Chattanooga because that's one of the hub for like rail. So we have a conference every single year. And I remember my very first experience at that airport was, big conference, like a couple thousand people, everyone at the airport, and there's 2 Uber drivers that runs around in and out to the city for half an hour. So literally, if you order anything, if you don't have a rental car and you have to order Uber, you have to wait like at least 30 minutes before the next Uber comes in. So that was the first evaluation. I remember I went with my director of marketing at that time just to scope out the event. And what we said was like, let's do something crazy next year. Why don't we just rent a limo bus next year? Because clearly there's a lack of transportation to the hotel. Put our logo on a limo bus. We can get 20 people at a time and just keep going back and forth to the airport. That's easy leads that probably cost like $1,000 for the limo, right? But like that whole day, basically all we did was we got every contact information. We got exactly where they stay because we dropped them off at every single hotel. Like we kind of go through the whole city and drop them off at every hotel, and they know about us, right? And then we actually have an event, like we have a private event that we kind of invite certain people from that list. Say, hey, if you're going to be in town as well tomorrow after the event, we actually have a private area. Would you like to attend? So this is the deeper conversation. You have 30 minutes in a bus full of strangers that you don't know that's attending the event. It's like you're stuck to have a conversation. But then if I say, hey, we have a whiskey event happening, tomorrow night, would you like to attend? It's on us. Right. So this is like easy leads that you can actually get, and it didn't cost us that much as well. Right. So be creative in that sense. You can go outside of like the norm and don't be normal. Right. A lot of like people attending the event is like they try to just like make things normal because that's the easy way out. So think of something different, think of something unique that doesn't have to be fully in the conference, and think about things that can happen outside of the conference as well. So
that's so clever. I now I'm thinking of so many other companies where I've seen they have been able to pull this off really, really well. I remember in this one company where they gave us the Uber coupon. So they knew how much it costs usually from the hotel to the venue, and it was usually under $20. So they gave us a coupon, and the coupon code was actually their company name, something like I love company name. And that way, if you think about this, every time I'm using it, I'm kind of reciting to my subliminal memory that I love that company. And next time I see that company, that's there. And of course, they did a bunch of other things. I remember, I think the best event which I attended was Dreamforce 2018, where this guy, he was the CMO, and he was like, I don't know, felt like an auctioneer to me, because what he did is they had these raffle tickets, and every hour they would simply, give it to everybody. People would collect, people would come, and while everybody's anticipating who's going to win, he's going to give the whole pitch. Now, what he did during that is, for full 10 minutes, people have their full attention on the CMO because they have to listen. Because he would be dropping nuggets about, how the draw is going to happen every time it's new people. And for me, I was actually in the nearby booth, and I won one of the Beats headphones back in the day. So, and he was giving out every hour, and we were so impressed. We actually calculated the cost, and then we tallied that with them. It probably costed them I think less than $1,500 a day. And this is of course on top of the booth, but the amount of leads they got surpassed everyone in the entire lane we had. Imagine there were at least 150 people coming in every hour, just at the top of the hour, just to register for the raffle. And this does not include the people coming throughout the hour, right? So that they had these massive leads, and I think on the idea, okay, I think I have another thought on what you said. So like you said, you came up with this idea of the limo, right? You had to, it's not that, you saw somebody else doing it and you're copying it. That was your original idea. I think a lot of people and a lot of founders, which I see, they kind of get stuck where they're trying to copy somebody's idea. For example, if they like Limo's idea, they're like, hey, I'm going to do the same thing. But that's one that's been done before. Some people are already thinking about it. And so my question to you is, how do you come up with that idea?
Yeah, no, the very quick question. I'm not gonna take full credit on that idea because obviously we have a whole marketing team that's just a genius in that sense. But I think about the industry that you're in. You can really utilize, especially coming. I guess let's take a step back. Especially coming from the tech world, we're pretty modern. Like my industry that I'm servicing is within the supply chain, where they're slightly maybe a year, 2 years behind basically than what's happening in the SaaS world, right? So you get to get inspired by some of the creativity from the SaaS world, but also think about, like I said, I think the biggest thing is think outside the box, right? Like you're in like for example, in marketing, if someone is in marketing, it's like you're in marketing for specific reasons, to think something that has never been done before, and utilize basically that element to it, right? And I think you actually made a good point around like you don't want to copy someone else's, because I think it's funny because like when we started that whole limo motion, the next year people were expecting us to be on the limo again, right? They were already waiting for us, and that branding, it's like I've got a lot of emails even for the next year's same event, the next year annual event. They already messaged you, are you gonna have the limo again? Now people are actually outreaching me before actually like myself outreaching them. And to a point that we ended up, the second year we did the same thing as well. Very great success. We actually ended up having 2 limos because we realized that the first one couldn't get enough. We did the second limo. But on the third year, we actually stopped doing it because now the event management are the one doing it. So they're now taking our idea and actually utilizing it for free, basically within the motion, which is like, to me, it's just like, that's a good success because now everyone knows that we started it and we're the trendsetter basically in that state, right? So, but I think the biggest thing is just like you got to just try experimenting. It's okay to use similar concepts, right? Because if it's never been done before by anyone in the company, you can steal from, from Dreamforce, from SaaSter, like you can steal that in your own industry, because like I'm pretty sure sometimes some of these events never seen that before, right? Like I'm not sure if you know, but like as an example, the two-story trade show booth. Have you seen a two-story trade show booth?
I
Right,
think
we've
this
seen
was
it
usually done by the larger brands, but I've seen that. Yeah.
100%. But like in my industry, no one has ever seen that before, right? So it's like you can take that same idea, same concept, make it like unique, right? I mean, obviously, don't pay like $200,000 or like so forth to get like that two-story, but like you can still utilize it. It does require a lot of research. It does require a lot of like talking to a lot of people, and you can't just like sit and not do anything. Like do your homework, right? Like see what's happening on the floor, who's gonna be on the floor, and then play on basically into like the whole demo. I do a lot of like mapping usually before a conference. I usually map out like where's the hotel, where's the convention center, what's happening around that, where can I actually pinpoint and use local stores, local restaurants, local stuff basically that I can leverage and experience that. If you've never been to that city, guess what? Here's what locals are saying. Here's let's run an experiment basically and utilize some of the local presence basically to do that experience.
I'm going to reveal some of the strategies which I've used in the
Yeah.
past, which I've never revealed to anybody, and this is the first time I'm discussing it. Some of them might seem like borderline stalking, but yeah, it is. It is what it is. Okay,
Yeah,
so
it's
what
good.
we did is, yeah. So what we did is we were of course a small brand, and we found out there are other brands whom we compete, and how we win. So I installed one of my SDR like 50 feet away from their booth, and his job was simply to monitor who is going to their booth.
Mhm.
And anytime that the prospect or the person who is at the booth will leave by, they'll be like, hey, I saw that you were at the booth, by the way, what do you do? And they'll start the conversation. 8 out of 10 times the conversation will go in the right direction, and we will at least get the information, and we'll at least get the demo. And this is an SDR we're talking about who was able to do this. And this is a strategy that I replicated almost in every event. So in every event, and you can do this, but for this, you don't have to have a booth. Let's say you can be an attendee and simply go to the companies, who are your competitor. I'm sure you'll definitely have some. Just hang around their booth. Or maybe, and one of the other strategy which we deployed is never wear your own badge. I know this is borderline wrong, but wear somebody else's company just in case they want to scam you. They will never get to know you. They anyways don't know you unless you're famous. They'll scan you, and they'll get somebody else's lead. So yeah, there are few strategies like this which just works. And one of the other things which you can do is find out one of the key prospect, see which after event they're going to attend, and your job should be that you go to that event, because if this guy is going there, this guy or girl is going there, there's a chance that you'll find more people like that.
100%.
So I think, and then I think you're right about the after party thing. I have met COO of Typeform, and I spoke to him for 2 hours.
That's the crazy part that I think a lot of people are not utilizing, because in my opinion, and this is the reason why when I think about the personnel that's actually going to shows, is I usually mix it up, right? Like I always say, obviously have salespeople because they're built to kind of speak with people. That's like what their day to day kind of looks like. I love bringing BDRs honestly, because like BDRs are just hunting. They don't care about closing the deal, right? They just hunt, which is like that's what you need at a show, not necessarily closing anybody. So when we have AEs, SDRs, I usually try to bring a product person usually along the way, because, and obviously executive, you also do want to have like executive presence, because that's a different image that you actually have as well. But the reason why I bring a product person is like I'm not expecting product person to network. I'm expecting product person to be present at like those sessions, right? Go to like some of the sessions, go into like some of those rooms that an SDR, an AE, a salesperson do not need to go to. Because this is more of like division of work, right? Like if like a event starts at 7 a.m. for breakfast, and then 8 a.m. is the first session, and then event runs till like midnight, you want to make sure that you divide your team accordingly, where if I'm spending the whole night out basically at like different night events till like 1 a.m. or at a bar basically at 1 a.m. talking to people, I'm not going to show up to an 8 a.m. breakfast. I'm not going to show up to a 9 a.m. session. Like to me, like that doesn't matter for me. Like I don't need to be in those sessions. But going back, that's why you have a product person basically comes in to kind of learn some of the what's happening in the industry, taking some of the nuggets, using that for leverage for content marketing around, takeaways basically from this event, right? So, but really separate that like work, right? Like you don't want to give up, that one person, you need to attend every single event, get content marketing, network with people, also don't sleep, right? Like network with everyone until like late in the morning, right? So really that division does matter a lot, and being able to kind of split out that kind of work and utilize their strength. Because like for me as an example, I don't want to go to those sessions. My goal is like I'm there to network. I'm there to kind of get to know as many people, and my job is purely building relationship. And you can kind of build different ways of relationship at a bar, at a simple newcomers meetup, etc. I always show up to a newcomers meetup. By the way, like that's the number one thing for any association. Newcomers meetup, I'm always there because every newcomer don't know who to talk to, right? I'm always there
Mhm.
to introduce them to what's happening with the event. Like I'm not a staff for the event, but like being an expert in that sense, people are gonna lean on you and they're gonna remember you throughout the whole event. So
Amazing. I have one more strategy which I just thought of, which I used to deploy. And this is before the whole AI era, before the AI kind of busted. So because we would have a couple of SDRs who would be accompanying me to the event. So I would send them to, I mean, when there was no time for, let's say, hunt, and then there were enough people at the booth, I would send them to attend some of the sessions which I believe they would actually really learn from. At the same time, they would go and record the whole session, either in a video or an audio, and we would come back later, transcribe them, because we know the video is not going to be out for another week or 10 days because it requires time. We would use those insights to prospect maybe the attendees, but maybe the companies we know for sure attended, or even to the other prospect, because these are the insights, and these are insights coming from, let's say, industry leaders. Imagine Elon Musk is talking about something, and of course everybody's listening to him. So we want to take that, reach out to many people who follow Elon Musk, for that matter. Or either way, I think it was a brilliant strategy, kind of because there were a few people who missed that session, and they're like, "Wow, some of the replies we used to get was, hey, damn, it seems like I missed a great session." I remember we got a meeting like this from back in the day with DocuSign, I guess, because one of their executive was talking about something, and we used those same codes and reached out to somebody in the company.
smart, smart, very very smart. Yeah, that goes a long way too. Like I feel like people are not utilizing the content basically, and that's the reason, right? Like I say, that split. If you do have a
Mhm.
team, that split makes a difference because you still need people attending sessions for that specific reason, right? Like to make yourself basically be in the same page basically what's happening within the industry, right? So, I like that.
Tell me something. So let's assume that you were successful in gathering and scanning all these leads, which I believe a lot of companies are able to. What I have seen personally is where they still fail, despite all the creative ideas, hanging out, sleepless night, is following up. I
Mm.
I mean, I've met and worked with some of the smartest people in marketing where they fail. I've worked with like probably some of the people who were really, really poor, but they were able to execute it. What is the secret sauce to follow up after the event? Are there timelines to look after? Consider, given that some people would say, "Oh, give them some space. Let them reach home. Let them settle." But don't we run the risk of letting them forget about everything what happened? So, what is the right strategy here?
This is hard. This is actually a real hard topic around follow ups, right? Because going back to the framework around the four A's now, I guess not three, but the four A's. It's what's your purpose of going there makes a difference on what the outcome would actually be like. Because if your purpose is just purely building a relationship for a long-term conversation, then like in reality, pipeline are not going to be showing right off the bat, or close one, opportunities are not going to show within the next like 3 months, right? And I think this is where kind of want to go a little bit deeper onto this as well. But I guess like that, when we talk about the last A, which is the acquisition, some of the cold leads, what do you do when you capture, let's say, 200 badge, right? You got 10 real conversations, right? And at those 10 real conversations, none of them actually close, right? This is the hard sell, in my opinion. I still haven't really figured this part out, but this is the hard sell where when a CFO approve you for like a $50,000 booth or a $180,000 booth that you mentioned, they expect pipeline generated and they expect close one opportunity. And the expectations usually like how inbound leads kind of come in, right? You expect someone to go to Google Ads, book a demo, you do a demo, and then next thing you know, within less than 3 months, you close the deal. Dollar value comes in. But in reality, with when you scan 200 batch, 200 MQLs, you get 10 real ones, but none of them close within 3 months. The verdict from leadership, it's events don't work, right? And that's where I guess it becomes the harder conversation around what is the main purpose of when you actually go to some of these events. Because yes, 100%, like you need to know why you're coming in for. If you're mainly building that relationship and lasting relationship, then we're not going to expect numbers right off the bat, right? But however, what people missed out is because most follow-ups happen within the first 30 days, and that's the most crucial. I think in my opinion, after 30 days, leads are dead, everything becomes nurturing, right? So the first 30 days, like, it's super important that you actually have a strategy in place before you go to some of these events. You know what some of the motions, what are some of the sequence after an event. Auto create that as well, like at least a framework. And then you utilize basically, like you were saying as well with the whole DocuSign story, like use some of those nuggets that you actually learn from sessions, use some of the nuggets that you've been chatting with like some big company basically around some of those insight, and actually share that and put it into your sequence, right? So I think what a lot of people do is they forget about that, and they treat leads as more of just, here's another MQL. It's more of like a PLG motion. We only work the ones that's big, and that's pretty much it. And you don't worry about that. But in reality, most of the ones that actually gonna close within the first 3 months are not necessarily the larger ones, right? But we need to kind of continuously build that nurture program that's more than just 1 month. We follow up within 1 month, but then you create a longer term cycle of nurturing. So reach back in about 3 months afterwards, reach back again in 8 months, reach back, maybe 3 months before the next event, like the annual event, right? And actually utilize that, in like a multi-touch motion. That, in my opinion, that the biggest success is not necessarily just, us closing the deal, is hopefully one day they know their brand, they know who we are, and they actually come inbound, which to me, that's a whole attribution. I don't know if we want to go into in depth with the whole attribution conversation, but to me, that's success as well, even for events, right? You made the name out there, you got the brand out there, you got the person, and you're just continuing those conversation more than just like the first 30 days.
Got it. Before we jump on to the last question I have for you, and it's gonna be an easy one. I want to talk a little bit about the community you're building. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's a very funny story, actually. I had an idea about, I would say, 2 years ago. So I jumped into tech about close to 5 years ago. I never came from the tech world. I was a very corporate guy. I work at like an insurance company, a big insurance company, where so many different hierarchies basically in order for you to just get approved for one thing. I kind of lead the whole training and development there as well. And to me was when I had to jump into tech, the biggest thing is like I don't know what I need to do, because like coming from a corporate environment, everything is structured, right? Like, you start your first day, guess what? Here are the motion, here's the playbook, just run it and just follow it and just repeat it every single day on a 9 to 5 motion, right? Where in a startup, it's like, it's not a typical 9 to 5. You know how like a lot of people like to say it now, it's like a 996 culture, right? Being able to kind of, have someone, and I always wanted to have someone that I could learn from that's not from the company. And that's sort of like what the initial start was I train a lot of SDRs, and I try to redirect my SDRs to other leaders that I know to kind of help coach them that's not coming from me as their manager. And 2 years ago, I think about maybe I should create an SDR community. And that's when I actually saw your stuff basically with like School of SDR, because that's like a great motion that you were running, because people want that, right? And SDR want that. So long story short, I met my co-founder Max. Basically, he approached me and say, "Hey, how about we go and dream bigger? Why don't we go into full go-to-market rather than just SDR? Because clearly, more than just SDR, it's not just SDRs that actually need this community. It's all of go-to-market, because there isn't really a close-knitted community of go-to-market in Canada, right? There's a lot of like chapters from like a community from the States. There's a lot of like one-offs, but not really a sole focused go-to-market motion and a community basic in Canada. So why don't we just build one? So that happened like December 2025. So we've been planning a lot of things, and decided to make our first bet, and we made a launch in April. Originally, we kind of have a very low standard of let's have maybe 50 to 75 people will probably show up. Let's just market it on LinkedIn and see how it goes, and then maybe we use Google Ads and start like doing the whole like GEO and so forth. Surprising, within the first week we sold out. We hit 75 attendees confirmed basically on our Luma page within that first week. Event's still like a month away, by the way. So we have to pivot, like, okay, let's go to 100 now and see how it goes. 2 weeks later, it hit 100. All right, our venue doesn't fit. We need to change venue. So we literally changed venue, went it up to like 120, filled out basically within that last week of the event date. And we're like, let's just go higher and like aim a little bit higher. And we actually ended up, I believe, had 156 people confirm to the event.
Wow.
And the show rate, we only know, right? Like 40%, at least 40-50% will actually show up. We actually have about 120 people showed up, right? So all through like word of mouth. And this is like the reassurance for us is like the Canadian community really wanted a community. And instead of waiting for someone to create it, like, why not create it our own? And yeah, we're super excited for that. It's been growing. We had a Toronto Tech Week last week, and I was at a conference as well recently, and it's crazy how people actually know the brand. And it's only been like 2 months, and people are saying, "Hey, you're John from Go to Market North, right? Like we heard about your event from somebody, or like this person told me, and like they talk about it at the office that we should attend the next event," which is like, to me, that's like music to our ears, because like, this is like something that to me is like, it's working, right? And it's working. It's also the community really wants it. And yeah, no, we're about to do a next event coming up as well in August. So I think once this video is aired, we're hosting one on August 20th. We're upping it to like around 250 people to kind of show up. So super excited basically with that whole motion.
Big win on the first attempt.
Yeah, indeed. It's scary, but like reassuring at least now.
And I think you definitely have a great window of opportunity here as well, because I think you and I talked about this offline, that we all have been part of so many online communities where, while I understand the idea was always, hey, there'll be a sense of belongingness, you'll actually chat with like-minded people. But that in most communities, the same thing happens after a while. You feel like, why am I part of this community? Why did I sign up? And sometimes you would go to, just see if there's one of your prospect. Can you get a lead? Or sometimes you will probably go to find an answer. But it really happens that, you're actually engaging. But I think there's a huge opportunity for in-person events. And I'll tell you why. When I recently moved to Dubai, and the first thought is, hey, how do I find more people who are in tech? How do I find more events? And first thought was, okay, let me go to meetup.com. And I saw a bunch of these events, but I did not see anything which was credible. So and I'm pretty sure the same logic applies probably everywhere. There is not one particular brand who is kind of hosting these events. Of course, there are brands which are, I don't know, just hosting one-off. But I think if you're able to make this a series, like especially on the GTM, I think you have a business. Not a business right yet, maybe, but I'm pretty sure you never know where this might lead.
Yeah, I mean, our biggest vision, honestly, is a little bit contrarian to 2026, right? Like the digital world always gets noisier. And, especially, we heard about it, especially for the business development world, AI SDR this, AI SDR that, right? Like everything is starting to be very automated. Surprisingly, like the in-person network becomes the most valuable thing, as a go-to-market person that you can actually own. So like our biggest focus going back with go-to-market North is really building that for Canada. And like, it's more of a place to kind of build that trust, where, you start off basically in that conference hallway and like a big motion, get to know someone, but then usually that vanishes along the way, right? So this value kind of compounds, because now they have a place where you have a community to now continue on those conversations. And our biggest focus is like always in IRL networking first, right? Everything is in person first over like the Zooms, and like we're probably going to do Zooms and stuff like that eventually. But our main focus is like every quarter we have one big event where all of go-to-market can meet up. And you could be an SDR wanting to kind of jump into marketing. Hey, guess what? There's a marketing person right across the room for you to talk, to learn a little bit more. Customer success, you hated it. Perfect. You want to go into like business development. Cool. There's a lot of business. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of business development person in the room. We have early stage founders as well. You want to start your own business. How do you get started? How do you start your own SaaS company? Cool. There's a bunch of like founders here that has gone through that whole life, right? So the idea is like that, like quarterly meetups is to really open up the whole network for go to market, and then we want to try to do like monthly meetup for like individual like verticals, like a marketing specific dinner or like a RevOps specific motion and so forth. So, but yeah, I'm super excited. I'm so
Yeah, I'm
pleased with this.
excited, and I feel like sometime, if I visit Canada, yeah, I'd love to attend that event.
100%, man. 100%. Would love to kind of have you there.
Yeah. All right. I have the final question for you. I know we've been talking about these IRL events for a while, but I think we have to address the elephant in the room, which is AI. Where is the place of AI in these events? Are there things which you can do better with AI, or you think you can just increase the efficiency? Anything which you feel where AI still has a place in these events?
Before the age of explosion of AI, I'm not gonna say AI has been around for a while, but like before the full exposure of AI, I do a lot of things manually. I think there's definitely different aspect. It's similar to like things when the things that like BDRs do basically in the front end, right? Like why do company research? Why do like customer mapping basically by hand when you have now AI to be able to kind of automate some of those works, right? So, if you get like, let's say an example, attendee list, scrape those attendee lists, map it out basically who you need to kind of talk to, curate messaging ahead of time. So AI kind of gave you that infinite reach, but the only thing is like that zero trust with AI is where you're going to meet them. Basically, you're going to build that trust at the event. But all the dirty work that you have, like the mapping, the cleaning up of pipeline, the resurfacing basically old conversation that you have in your CRM, like AI, Claude now is like super strong basically with those connector, be able to kind of do all those for you ahead of time, where now you're focusing on, more of like building a relationship, connections on LinkedIn, actually having a proper conversation, thinking about the creative side of things. And I guess that's the other part as well. Like AI is your consultant as well, like your advisor, right? Like if you want to run something, just like tell about what the event that you're about to go to, tell about the demographic, tell about the area, tell about the experience that you want to make. It'll shoot out a lot of ideas for you that you probably never thought about, right? And run with that, right? If you want to kind of get started with something. So there's definitely a lot of different usage, that you can kind of use with AI. And I'm pretty sure we're going to see a lot more of an event focused AI tools out there that's probably going to pop up in the next like few months.
Yeah, I think I can also think of a few ideas which you can run with AI, which was not possible earlier, or it would just be impossible. So think of all the people who are already posting 1 week prior to the event that I'm going to be there. And right now, if you were to do this manually, first of all, it's not possible. I don't know, unless you're tracking each of your single prospect in Navigator or something. You can use Apify and Claude connector and, say, hey, scrape all the people in my list who have maybe posted about the event, or maybe the company has posted that they're going to be having a booth. You can easily scrape all the possible events happening in the, let's say, 10-mile radius of the event. I don't know. So there could be multiple things you can do, which was not possible earlier.
100%. I mean, I like to use it. Like it's kind of weird because like I usually send it to my design team to kind of do like the the headshots with like all the stuff. I actually did something which is like, to me, no one has done before as well, where there's an event that usually give us like sort of like that frame for, hey, just put this frame on your LinkedIn and say that you're attending, put your face in there. So I'm like, you know what, with like Google Gemini, I'm like, why don't I make a video out of this, right? So I made a video of me coming out of the frame, and like people loved it, and now people are starting to do that as well in the industry, like making that like unique stuff. I mean, AI can do a lot of stuff, right? Like be creative, ask AI, right? I think that's the biggest thing. Make a chat, chat with, chat GPT with Claude, like have a conversation with them around the strategy, what's creative, and I can reassure you that there's a lot of different ideas that they would actually come up with. So
wow, I think there's a lot more now which is striking my mind, some of the great success stories which I believe we could have discussed, but we should probably do another one just to discuss those strategies, or maybe we should probably put together like an ebook of all the companies who have really done it well. Thank you so much, Jonathan, for doing this, giving me a space to talk about it, because I think I've been like holding this up for a while, and I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to somebody about this. Like, how do we even do this? Thank you so much for doing it.
Thank you for having me, Rahul, and thank you for opening up the space. We don't hear a lot of like partnerships and events type of conversation. So, I mean, we can go into like the next episode. Maybe we go into attribution, because that's the topic that I really love talking about. So,
yeah, conversation for another time.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks so much, Rahul.
Thank you so much.